Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, the podcast that explores the life-changing potential of solo travel, intentional travel, and location-independent working. Whether you're an aspiring digital nomad or simply want to boost your confidence through epic travel experiences, I'm here to motivate and inspire you to go after all your wildest dreams. I'm Jessica Grace Coleman, author, travel transformation coach, founder of Flip the Script Travel Transformation Services, and your host for the Travel Transformation Podcast. Travel changed my life. Now let's change yours. You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, where we talk all things travel and all things transformation. With me today is my guest, Sara Tyler. Sara has been living abroad since 2010, and in 2021 she started her own publishing house, Nomad Publishing, which has so far launched 4 best-selling travel books. She provides publishing services for aspiring travel authors and is also launching a program to help burnt-out teachers become book publishers. She wants to share the message that it's never too late to travel and that even after kids you can have meaningful and life-changing experiences. And she would know. She has given birth to and raised her children abroad, all while living this wonderful digital nomad lifestyle. I really enjoyed talking to Sara. We talked about all kinds of things to do with book publishing, writing about travel, being a digital nomad, traveling with kids, and the perils of not knowing how to use toilets when you're abroad in a foreign country. And believe me, I've been there. So on that note, let's get to the interview. Hi, Sara. Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast. Thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.
How are you?
We are doing good. It's nice 80 degrees here in Veracruz.
Nice. Bit jealous.
How about you?
Yeah, it's very bleak, wintry day over here, but I can't complain too much because I'm getting on a plane to South Africa on Saturday and it's summer over there at the moment. So I'm trying not to complain too much because I won't have to deal with it for too much longer.
I think that makes it a better reward, right? Because you're suffering, but you're like, oh, I'm going to be in South Africa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So for our listeners, please, can you tell me where you're from originally, where in the world you are right now, and what you do for work in terms of your Nomad Publishing?
Okay. So today I was just informed by somebody on LinkedIn that it's my 2-year anniversary with Nomad Publishing today.
Hey, congratulations.
So I grew up outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Snow every year on my birthday. Absolutely hated it. Hate the cold. Hate everything about winter. And so I always wanted to live at the beach. And 13 years ago, I left the U.S. and I'm currently in Veracruz, Mexico, with Nomad Publishing. Actually, I don't think I have my book last time we talked. This is the latest book I did. What I do is I help moms who travel, who have a business, share their stories and books so that they can market themselves instead of spending all their time on social media trying to share their business.
Yeah, I know what that's like.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you about your books in a bit, but just for now, for the travel aspect, what made you say about the snow and everything, but what made you want to move to Mexico in particular?
Mexico is where I was very lucky when I was in high school. I had an older boyfriend, and when I turned 18, he brought me to Cancun, Mexico. You know, you can drink in Cancun, and of course I drank and threw up everything. And it was my first experience. My parents had never traveled internationally. We would just go to the New Jersey shore, like an hour and a half from our house. That's where we went my entire life. So that was my first introduction into, like, wow, people speak a different language. The beach is nothing like New Jersey. It's gorgeous. It's amazing, the Caribbean. And I just was like, wow, it wasn't that expensive to get on a flight and come here. I don't really know why nobody else does it.
Mm-hmm.
So we kept traveling. Eventually that relationship didn't last, but I still kept traveling back to Mexico, and I started traveling alone, which I think everyone should do. Every woman especially should travel alone. And each time I kind of got a little braver. Like I started at the all-inclusive, as this was my first solo travel and I wanted to be safe. And then like the second time I'm like, let me go down to downtown Cancun. Let me get on the bus. And then I was like, let me go to Mexico City, Cuernavaca. And it just started to grow the confidence, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And so you say you started, like with the resort and then you went downtown. Did you feel nervous or scared or anything when the first time you went downtown? Do you remember that?
I do remember it because my family was like, oh my God, you're going to get murdered. Someone's going to kidnap you if they call us for ransom money. We don't have the money. They try to scare you. And I am very talkative, so I make a lot of friends wherever I travel, and I had made a lot of friends at the hotel. So the first time I went with a friend from the hotel, bartender Ramon, who this was almost 20 years ago, and we are still friends today.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he brought me downtown and brought me to like a local bar and to eat and everything. So I felt a little safer having that guidance, especially he worked for the hotel. So,
yeah,
he had a job to worry about.
That is a very good way of doing it, I think. And yeah, I think it's worth saying that even when you're solo traveling, you're never solo for long, like especially if you're staying in places where there's other solo travelers, you can make friends so easily. And I think the friends you make when you're traveling, you form a stronger bond with them because you've sort of shared the just experience of traveling, and like you can go years without seeing them and then you can be like, oh, do you want to come and go traveling somewhere else? And you meet up and it's just like, no time has passed. It's that kind of friendship. So I really like that. Have you ever felt unsafe in any of your travels anywhere you've been?
I haven't felt unsafe. When I worked in Mexico City as a local teacher, I remember that a lot of the teachers got mugged at the same location, the same teaching school. So at night, whoever had to teach at night, they tended to get robbed for their cell phones and whatever cash they had on them. It didn't happen to me just by luck, but I never felt unsafe. There are places in Philadelphia I would never go. And I'm from the area. I would never go there because, if people are going there, they're going there for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. So I feel like if you have the same precaution, in any big city that you're in, you're going to be fine. There's not really a difference. I never felt like there's a target, but I also I'm not wearing like a Chanel, handbag and a bunch of jewelry. I'm not walking around really trying to tempt it either.
Yeah, definitely. And I totally agree about the, countries wherever you are in the world. Like there are places in London or Birmingham near me where I would not go on my own or at night, and exactly. And I've been in Thailand and places and felt perfectly safe. So people always say like, oh, don't you worry about all this? And I'm like, well, not any more than I would in like a big city in the UK. Like
I even feel safer. I mean, when I backpacked through Central America alone, I felt safer as a tourist, almost like nobody wants the problem.
Yeah.
I'm messing with the American tourist. I felt like there's an extra layer of protection.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So you mentioned there that you used to be a teacher and that was in a traditional classroom. So when did that change and why? Did you leave that to start Nomad Publishing?
I did. I was a teacher for over 10 years. I taught classrooms, companies, online, everywhere. And basically when the pandemic happened, my daughter was just born. My daughter was like 6 weeks old when the pandemic happened. So I just had a baby and we had this great routine, right? My older daughter just started preschool, had the baby at home. And then pandemic happened, the school shut down. Now I have 2 little kids under 5 and I have online classes where I have 12, 15 live students on Zoom. And I'm like, trying to telling my husband, like, Charlie, get out of the room, get out of the room. So I was spending most of my time locked in a bedroom teaching classes. I'm really stressed. I was really and then like, what am I doing for their schooling? I'm not even seeing my newborn baby. I didn't see her for the first 4 months. And I just got burnt out, like a lot of teachers did. I used to teach homeschooled children on OutSchool. And when the pandemic happened, all of the public school parents just threw their kids into the classes. They didn't know what to do with them. It's not their fault. They just threw them in any online class. So I had these kids before that were mature, interested in learning. They knew how to use Zoom. And then when the pandemic happened, I had frustrated parents. They were angry all the time. When their schools opened, they would want a refund from the course because they didn't need it anymore. and the kids just were lost. They weren't used to online classes. So it was a accelerated burnout because of the pandemic.
Yeah. Gosh, that does sound like a very stressful time.
That was awful.
But then you started Nomad Publishing, which is really cool. So, and your most recent book called World Schoolers that you mentioned. So can you tell me a bit about that book? And then I know you're working on a new book that's going to be coming out. So could you tell me a bit about that one as well?
Yes, of course. So World Schoolers, it's so thick. It is so huge. It's a 400-page book. So we had a ton of authors. We had 22 authors contribute to this book. And the authors, I mean, they really just put their heart and soul into the story about how we weren't happy in our lives before. We knew we wanted to change. There's a lot of themes about, my first kid was fine in school, but then my second kid wasn't fine in school and was falling behind, and there's really not a lot of resources. So there's a lot of themes of just unhappiness and frustration and really wanting to completely change their lives. Many of the authors found community through the World Schooling Summits and the Facebook group. And so they changed their lives completely. Most of them went like this: I'm going to homeschool. I'm going to buy all of the books possible and every single curriculum book I can find. Frustrated themselves to no end, and their children threw the books out, or even I think Sarah donated them to a library in Australia. And then we're like, we're going to unschool. Let's change this up. Instead of being stuck at home while we're traveling, we're in Egypt, let's go to the pyramids. And that's the lesson. So they had this transformation of really having to let go of what people were criticizing them for, the judgments from their families and friends that their kids are never going to go to college, they're never going to be successful adults, and really just being, I'm going to do what I want and what I know is best for my family.
Yeah. So for someone who doesn't know what world schooling is, I mean, you just mentioned it a bit, but can you sort of give a definition?
Oh, this is the hardest part. It's the hardest part. So you could ask 20 people and get 20 different definitions. In the book, you'll see some people call themselves world schoolers, unschoolers, which unschooling is a form of world schooling where there's just no plan. You let the kids choose what they want to study. World schooling is really learning from the world around you, whether it's in your backyard or you're in a different country. Some people call it travel schooling, freedom schooling, life schooling. There's a million different definitions, but I would say that the theme is really interest-led or child-led learning. Mm-hmm. Letting the child decide, like my daughter, she taught herself math. I hate math. She taught herself math on YouTube. She doesn't even watch dumb YouTube videos. She watches math.
Wow.
I never would have thought of that. And she's 5 and she knows math, and she learned to read, and all of the worries that you have just kind of disappear as they naturally pick it up.
I love that. I love the YouTube thing. I hadn't really thought about that, because obviously adults use YouTube to learn literally anything these days.
Everything.
So why shouldn't kids learn that way as well?
How to YouTube like 5 times a day.
Same. But then you inevitably fall down a YouTube hole of like really random videos, and you end up watching like all kinds of stuff. But I think it's so good in general. And your new one, is that Digital Nomad Moms? Is that right?
Yeah. So the new book that we're doing is Digital Nomad Moms, and this book we're really focusing. With the last book, we really focused on the education and like how do you educate your kid day by day. And with this new book, we're focusing on moms who love travel, who really creatively figured out a way to make a living from it. For example, I just got off a call with a new author, and she became a recruiter, but not just a recruiter. She works with companies based outside the US, specifically companies in countries where she's traveled to and has connections, to recruit from inside the US. Because she's from there, she understands the culture. So she has this like super niche that was developed by Croatia, which is where she visited with her family. And just by learning a little bit of the language, she was accepted by these Croatian businesses and built a successful company.
That's really cool. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's not the usual like, oh, I teach English online or I do transcription. I mean, these jobs and these careers They're very creative. Moms are creative.
Yeah, and there's so many ways of earning money now while you're traveling, which some people might not even realize. They might think, like you say, that you either do like translation work or you teach online, or the sort of things you think maybe like a few years ago would have been the main ways to earn money while traveling. But now you can pretty much do anything. If you can do it online, then you can do it while we're moving around. So
the thing about, I used to teach online, and the thing about it is you're not really traveling because you have to make sure that you have a wired internet connection. You are in a different place, but you're not really traveling. With Nomad Publishing, 90% of the time I'm on my phone. I'm working on my phone. And my project manager, she has 3 little kids. She works on her phone too. No problem with it.
That's really cool. And I like seeing on social media how you print out the copy and then you go to the beach and that you're editing on the beach. That's so cool.
I just recycled. I had like 800 pages on my desk. I feel like you have to, how are you going to read the book? How's the reader going to read it? The people that are going to read this love to travel. They're probably going to go to a quiet place. For me, my happy place is the beach, and I want that experience.
I love that.
And plus, I get to go to the beach by myself, and my husband has to watch the kids because it's work.
Because it's work. Nice. Good job. So the Digital Nomad Moms book you're working on at the moment, is this the last co-authored book you're doing? Did I read? Is that right?
I thought so. And then this morning I had an idea. That's just how it happens. If I'm in the shower or I'm in bed, for some reason, I get these ideas. I just said to my project manager, we have to do this book. My partner had polio as a child. So my partner, one of his legs is the polio leg. It's smaller, skinnier, and deformed. And the way he walks it looks like it hurts, but he says it doesn't hurt. It's really bad gait. And so accessible travel for us, even I didn't understand it in the beginning. I was very ignorant about how far he can walk, and going to certain resorts where like the restaurants are so spread out. It really opened my eyes to, oh my God, this is not accessible. There's no ramp here for wheelchairs. And so we've been in situations in different hotels where they would not accommodate him. And so accessible travel is just really something that pulls at my heartstrings. Mm-hmm. And this morning I said, we have to do an accessible travel book. There is no book.
That's such a good idea.
And people do travel. People that are in wheelchairs, on crutches, that have limited mobility, knee issues. There's so many different forms where they're limited.
Yeah. And will this be another like co-authored book similar to your others?
Yes. So this year for Nomad Publishing, it's all about growing. We're growing a lot. So my project manager is taking on more and more every month. She's amazing. She's a friend that I've known like 7 years, that we were both expats in El Salvador. So what you're saying about those friendships, they keep going.
Yeah.
So she's taking on more and more responsibility, and I'm outsourcing mostly everything so that I can really onboard new authors and help them outline their story. That's like my genius. I have 6 calls this week to outline stories for the book, and that's like where I love to be. So she's going to be taking on more of the looking for leads and speaking with possible contributors. And then we're looking for people to curate their own books, so that I'm not the person with ideas. I mean, you might want to do a book on transformational travel for solo travelers, people without kids. So we're looking at new programs where other people can bring their ideas to life, but with our support.
When you say you help with the like story outlines or the chapter outlines, how does that actually work? So if someone wanted to work with you, if they wanted to contribute to the accessible travel book or anything, how does that work between you two?
So we get on a call and we use Google Docs, and basically the author, I'll ask questions to get the story out of her, because we want to make sure it's a story. The author's always the hero in the story, no matter what. The author's the hero, but the hero has to have some type of struggle. It has to be something like unhappiness, or, I was fired from my job, I heard earlier, or COVID happened. And then they have rising events leading up to their climax. So I do a very 3rd grade teacher outline for a story. It's not difficult, but we do it, and I'm writing the notes as she's explaining, because it's much easier to tell a story orally than to write it. use different parts of your brain. So they just get to talk, and I'm filling in the blanks and asking questions to make sure that I have all the details. After the call, I send the document to the author, and they can knock out their story in usually an hour. They know exactly what to write. They know exactly what their lesson is, their climax. All the details are there.
That's great. So it's a very sort of fictional approach, like with the storyline, with the hero, with the climax, with the conflict.
It's actually called creative nonfiction. So if you write about travel, which most of us tend to do, when we write about travel, we do it in an informational, like a blogging way.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that you have to write it, if you've read like Eat, Pray, Love, if you've read a book like that, you have to take the story. It's nonfiction, but you have to use literary elements. So you have to explain, describe, put real dialogue in there. Talk about the character. You know, I want to know what you look like, what your life was like before, what your apartment looked like. So I can picture it in my head like a movie. So it's kind of a merge. It's hard because if you did learn that, it was probably way back in elementary school for 1 week, and you've probably never done it again. So that's why I help them outline, because most of the multi-author books, they do not do that, and most of them do not sell because they're kind of personal essays about I am so wonderful and I had all this success, and they're not really for the reader.
Since the start of the pandemic, many people have been reconsidering the ways in which they have fun. After a horribly isolating couple of years, we're now craving connection, community, and real deep conversation. We don't want to do the same old stuff every time we meet up with friends. We want something new, something different, something more. Enter the Flip the Script Party Packs. These digital party packs will help you flip the script on your usual parties and flip the script on your lives. Yes, this is self-development, but not as you know it. When you buy a Flip the Script party pack, you'll get taken to a super secret page on our online portal where you'll be guided through your very own Flip the Script party with videos, fun worksheets, and printables to help you throw the best Flip the Script party ever. There's a party pack for everyone and every situation. Mindset makeover, business bestie, life goals and legacy, birthday boost, hen-do hootenanny, and team building takeover, all designed to help you have a great time in a fun, collaborative setting. They're also perfect for when you're meeting people on the road and you want to get to know your new travel buddies. Small talk's dead. It's time to get deep with a Flip the Script party. Just head to traveltransformationcoach.com/party to purchase, or get all 6 party packs free when you sign up to the Flip the Script Digital Nomad Academy at traveltransformationcoach.com/academy. And now let's get back to the Travel Transformation Podcast.
And how do you promote your books? Do you have a strategy, or do you get every author to promote in different areas, or how does that work?
So I'm all about saving time because my authors are moms. We don't have time. So they have all of their social media posts are done for them. Of course, it's encouraged for authors to make it their own, especially in a group. Some of them are so creative with the reels and the videos and their stories. But really, during the launch, they have a schedule, and I ask them to post 3 times for 3 days during the launch. And then I'll do paid book promotions on websites that I've worked with before. We'll do influencer marketing. Most of the book sales, I will be honest, it's a long-term strategy. When people ask, oh, what's World's Going About in a Facebook group, an author will drop the link to the book and say, you should read this book. And that's where the sales come from.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
You have a book too, right?
I do, yes. Intentional Travel Transformation. Oh, no. Thank you.
Did you do it in an ebook or paperback?
Both. Yeah, they're both on Amazon. Yeah. So that's it's a sort of hybrid book. Part of it is like a travel memoir of my year, like the past year, and half of it is my travel transformation framework that I've come up with to help other people plan their intentional trips. And then it's got little inserts from different people I've met in my travels, like how travel has transformed their lives and things. So there's lots of little aspects to it.
So it's your lead generator.
Yeah, basically. It's like a business card, I guess. If you do any speaking gigs or anything, you can be like, this is my book. Yeah, definitely.
No, that's exactly what I tell the authors, that it's your lead generator. It's your brand story. That's why we put like links right after their story. And yeah, why give a resume when you can give a book?
Yeah, exactly. Way better. Okay, so I know you're passionate about moms traveling with children and solo traveling, and that you want people to know that moms shouldn't give up on their dreams or love of travel because of their family responsibilities. Can you tell me more about this and why it's so important to you?
So my mom always told me one piece of advice, and it was, do not only work to pay bills and die. And that's what she did. That's all my parents did, was work. My dad worked like 80 hours a week. He was never home to pay for this house that when my parents died, it just ended up in the hands of the bank anyway. So all of this work that they did, really, there was nothing to show for it. Both of my parents were very unhappy. They both died from drug overdoses, as well as my older brother. So I had this family of 5, and now it's just me and my brother who did, he was very, very addicted to heroin for like 5 years, but he did get clean and he moved to Florida. So I think maybe we just need to be in the sun or something like that to be happy. But now it's just the 2 of us. And so for me, watching my parents be miserable for 18 years when I lived there, their excuse was always, we're not getting divorced because we have the kids. We have the responsibility of the kids. And that was their excuse. And that is not a life I ever wanted to live. We didn't really have the Facebook resources that we have today, but there are so many inspiring moms who've lived backgrounds that I've lived, and even worse, and have made conscious decisions that I'm going to give my child the best life. And they've made it happen. I don't want my kid to see me, my daughters to see me fighting constantly with my partner like I did. I was embarrassed to bring friends over to the house. Horrible. So we have created a life where we're happy. We don't need a vacation. We travel because that's our lives.
Great. And so are you hoping that your kids also develop that love of travel?
They don't know not traveling. Since my daughter was born in El Salvador. Since she got her passport at 6 weeks and she was less than 3 months old, I was out. We were off and traveling until she was 3.5. She doesn't know a life where she's not traveling. And my second daughter, the same. So for them, this is normal. I think if we stayed in the same place, they would be like, what's going on here? What's happening? They love it. My older daughter has ADHD. So the constant stimulation of new places for her is so good. If she's stuck in the house, she's bouncing off the walls. Driving us crazy too, bouncing off the walls. So, if we go anywhere, it calms her. She learned how to write her ABCs at the beach in the sand. She really was meant for traveling.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a prime example of world schooling, I imagine. The writing ABCs in the sand. That's so cool. So before this podcast, I asked you about traveling, and you said that the trip that probably opened Pandora's box was your first one to Guatemala. Can you tell me more about that?
When I first went to Guatemala, because I had only traveled to Bermuda and Mexico by that point. And it's Bermuda. And when I went to Guatemala, I went with a coworker from the hospital where I was a nurse. And so he was Guatemalan, and I really got to see Guatemala, not the tourist version, but staying with his friends, his childhood friends, his family. We stayed with a childhood friend, and her family had a house, and it was right on a farm. So it was the first time I ate eggs from the chickens on the farm. And when I went to go to bed, I remember that there were workers in the house, like making my bed, and I was a little uncomfortable. But they had workers that gardened, and they had workers that cooked for them. And they weren't rich people. They were very middle class. But in Latin America, when you're middle class, you hire people. And I remember waking up and just seeing the volcano like right in front of the house.
Wow.
Because we got there at night. So in the morning, it was volcano and horses and cows. And it was my first experience outside of a school field trip where I milked a cow once, where I actually was around livestock. And then in on the property in kind of the corner, there was this little shack. It was this The family that worked on the property, the woman who owned it explained to me her parents passed away. These people have worked for my parents their entire lives. One was disabled. They're never going to find another job. I have to keep paying them. Like, she felt a responsibility to keep giving them work. So the family actually lived on the property, and their house consisted of 3 pieces of laminate, you know, like the laminate that they put on top of houses when you travel. It's just this long metal sheet. So they had 3 walls and a roof. So there were 4 pieces, not 5, because 5 would have closed it up. So you could literally see into their home, if you call it a home. It wouldn't be bigger than like a jail cell. No bathroom, no shower. I believe that they showered by going to the outside sinks at the property and, you know, like dumping water over them. I don't know about the bathroom, but that was like poverty to me. When I saw that, I was like, oh my God, these little kids, how can I get them clothes? People just throw away clothes in the United States. And I'm like, how do I get them down here? How do I ship them? And they were telling me, it's so expensive. It's just, your intentions are good, but they're not going to work out. But seeing that type of poverty, it breaks your heart in a way that we are so fortunate that we live in countries where even if you don't have a job, the government's still going to help you. You know, we're never going to be in a situation, there are homeless shelters. We're never going to be in a situation where you have 3 sides of metal as your house, no privacy. I mean, I can't even imagine getting dressed, being intimate with your partner. I don't know where they slept. There was no bed. It was dirt. How could you have that experience and not be changed?
So did that make you want to travel to other places and see how other people lived? And
yeah, Guatemala, just when I went back, you know, because you have to go back to work. And I remember I actually got a report because I didn't have the PTO to go on that trip. And I actually got a formal report from work. Like, if you do this again, you're going to be fired. I've never gotten in trouble ever. And I was like, totally worth it. Totally worth it. And I will probably do it again. Because if I have the opportunity, you know, coming back and everybody's problems were the new iPhone had just come out. You know, their problems just seem so first world problems compared to that. So after that is really when I started to go to Mexico City by myself. I still felt comfortable in Mexico. I really started planning to move abroad. I was like, you know what? I'm not just going to travel. I actually want to live abroad because I don't really like living in the US. I don't like the rat race.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Rat race no. So when you moved to Mexico, obviously you've done a lot of traveling, so you probably didn't have as much of a culture shock. But were there any like day-to-day things that were super different that you had to get used to, or like how did it differ to living in the US?
So when I first went to live in Mexico, I had a friend in the US, and Mexican people are so amazing. Well, a lot of people around the world are. That he was like, you can stay with my family. Don't even know them. Yeah, go ahead. You can stay with them. And they lived in Nezahualcóyotl, which is one of like the most dangerous suburbs of Mexico City. Nothing ever happened, but a family member always went with me, even if I went across the street to the corner store. And I'm going, you know, you go to the bathroom, go pee-pee. The toilet doesn't flush. Why doesn't the toilet flush? Maybe there's no water. Maybe, I don't know, like you think of first world things, like maybe the thing in the back in the tank is broken, the chain. And I'm like, oh, I just went pee-pee. So I just won't flush it. And then I notice when everyone else goes to the bathroom, like I hear a flush sound. So I'm like, how are they flushing? How are they flushing this toilet? And I finally had to ask someone, what do you do to flush the toilet? They say you take a bucket of water and you dump it into the toilet. And I don't know exactly the physics of this experiment, but it flushes the toilet. That prepared me so well because I cannot tell you how many places I go to that the toilet doesn't flush. I don't know why, but you need to throw the bucket in.
Yeah, I was always confused by that. Like when I was going around like Asia and things, you'd be like, why is there a bucket here? Like...
And yes, and also in Guatemala, it was the first time I was going to get a shower at the house. And I didn't think there wouldn't be hot water. So I was like, I'll get a shower at night. Yeah, right before bed. And I go in the bathroom like, why is there this giant tub of water? Oh, because nothing comes out of the shower. And that's the water I have to throw over me And it was ice cold. Ice cold. I didn't
Oh,
understand why everyone
no.
else bathed at noon. There are things that happen, and if you don't know to explain them to people, like when my brother comes, if we go to the rancho, we visit my husband's family, I prepare him. I'm like, he freaks out if there's not a toilet seat. He cannot live without a toilet seat.
Toilets are a definite, when you're traveling, you end up seeing so many different types of toilets. And I find like with British people as well, because we're so like polite and we don't want to, like we don't want to be a nuisance. Like we just wouldn't ask like what we're meant to do. So you're just there like trying to be like, what the hell am I, what do I do with this bucket? Like you don't know.
No, really, I was so confused because you could hear everything in the house, like many houses. I was like, how the heck are they flushing the toilet? And I was like, what if I have to go to number 2?
Yeah.
They were worried.
Oh no, you have to think about these kind of things when you're traveling, definitely.
But now I ask, like now, I'm not embarrassed about it, but I definitely I didn't want to look stupid, I guess, or no.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? You think like, oh, it must be really obvious. I don't want to ask because I'm going to look like an idiot, but like, just ask.
Or you don't want to offend them, be like, why isn't your toilet flush? But now I know that that's just normal. I have a house and both of our toilets flush, so I'm still not sure why other ones don't. But
Still a mystery.
But now, now I know that it's normal, especially when you're going to like, the rural areas of Mexico.
Always ask. That is the lesson we've learned. So do you have any tips for parents out there who maybe want to travel, but they worry about taking their kids with them, or they don't know how to start going about it? Like, what would you say to anyone like that?
I think the biggest mistake the parents make, and we all do this. We love our kids and we want to give them everything. So the first trip, we're going to Disney World. We're going with us, Cancun. All inclusive. They're going to love it. Kids club. And there's so many activities. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting just taking care of your kids at home. So when you go on a trip and you want to we want to go and have some margaritas too. And you're chasing them around the beach in the sun, you just drain yourself. So I think most parents, and I understand some can't help it based on their PTO, if they don't have the time off, I would say to do slow matting, slow travel, give the kids a good 2 weeks and a day between each activity, because it takes them a day when you get somewhere just to recover from the trip. Their nap schedules are off if they're little. They're eating different food, they're cranky. And then if you schedule back-to-back tours, they're just going to be more exhausted every day. And I feel that everybody ends up disappointed.
That is a really good tip, like for adults as well. Like, I think that helps.
Well, true. For adults too. I mean, how often you go on vacation and you have just scheduled yourself to death?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you get like travel burnout or social burnout, or, it's the FOMO, isn't it? You want to do everything, but you just need to rest sometimes.
I think for kids, it's, we forget that kids are super easy to please, that you can just take them to the park and they're happy. They don't need to meet a dolphin every time they go on vacation. They don't need to do like the speedboat jungle tour and all of the different things. They really are just happy, like sitting on the floor with you and playing. We forget that.
Yeah, that's good advice. So in my online content, I talk a lot about magical movie moments when you're on the road, like the brief moments in time that feel like a scene from a movie. And I think we get more opportunity to have these when we're traveling and meeting new people and doing new things. Do you have a magical movie moment that pops to mind from any of your past travels?
I had this idea. I was teaching locally in Veracruz, and so I had like 6 weeks off. Teachers do not get 3 months off. That's a lie. It was like 6 weeks because you have to go back for training and stuff like that. And so I did a solo backpacking trip. I had just broken up with a fiance, a domestic violence situation. So this was like my, I'm going to be a strong woman and leave him, not be that person. And I'm going to go where I want to go. And so I took buses. I took the Tica buses all the way from Veracruz to the Guatemala border. And then I went to Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras. Costa Rica, and Panama. And I stayed in each country with the idea of, I want to see the Panama Canal. And I just like history. I minored in history. I just wanted to see the Panama Canal. So when I finally got to that, it was like the accumulation of this. I did it by myself. Everyone said it was going to be dangerous. I met so many amazing people on the buses. And I got there, and I just remember sitting there, and you can watch the ships go by. So I went to a place called the Miraflores Lock. And the locks are these contraptions that, since there's a difference in the depth of the ocean, as they go through the canal, they have to adjust the water level. So they're the locks, and they adjust them little by little. And I just sat there for probably a couple hours, to be honest with you, because it was amazing to watch this huge process happen in front of you. How much engineering went into this, how they figured this out. But the best part is every boat that went by, people were waving. And everybody was just waving at you and so happy. And I don't know, it was just watching it. It was really nice to see, they're working, they're traveling. I'm sure they're tired working on a boat. I'm sure they've been waiting weeks just to get through the canal. And they're jumping for joy, taking pictures of us. We're taking pictures of them. And it was just a really happy, moment. It was the climax of that trip. I did go back by bus and stayed in the countries I liked more on the way back. But that was my movie moment, was I'm alone. I'm happy. I did not end up like the beaten girlfriend. I stopped that the first time, and I can do it by myself. It gave me a lot of confidence, a ton of confidence.
That's the main thing, isn't it? It gives you so much confidence, and that filters through to every other area of your life.
It does. Yeah, it does. Now I can ask about the toilet. I can be does the toilet flush?
Very useful, extremely useful, as we found out. Oh, I love that. How long did that trip take, by the way?
I took the whole 6 weeks. I had to take a bus from Tapachula, the border with Mexico and Guatemala, directly to Chiapas, to Tuxtla Gutierrez, for English teacher a summit right before we started the school year. So I literally was in my sundress with my backpack, arriving for teacher training. I took every second of that vacation.
Nice. That's the way to do it. Just rock up in all your travel stuff. That's really cool.
It was on the way back. So all the teachers, they were like, oh, you have to come back to Veracruz. I'll meet you there. It was literally on the way back.
Nice. Okay, so before we go, is there anything else you'd like to talk about or promote? And can you let our listeners know where they can find you online if they're interested in working with you on a book?
Absolutely. So if you want to be part of the Digital Nomad Moms book, or you have your own idea for a book, I am going to be working on the accessible travel book, which I know is harder to find these people. So if you know someone, send them my way. I have nomadpublishinghouse.com, and you can find me on all of my social media. But I think that's the best link because it has all the links to my social media, my interviews, podcasts, everything is right there. And the information you need about the book.
Great. And we'll put that in the show notes as well, so people can easily find that. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It was really great talking to you. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Travel Transformation Podcast with me, Jessica Grace Coleman. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review, and spread the word if you have friends or family who also want to transform through travel. For a chance of winning one of my books in ebook form, please review this podcast on Apple Podcasts and send a screenshot or just your name to info@traveltransformationcoach.com or at traveltransformationcoach on Instagram. I'll be picking a new winner each month, and you can choose between any of my non-fiction titles, including Write Your Life, Write Your Year, and Intentional Travel Transformation. You can find out more about me at traveltransformationcoach.com, where you can also get your free travel transformation guide. And until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.